The email landed with the silent impact of a sniper's bullet. Subject: to all Apex partners. My blood turned to ice in the sterile air of my 42nd floor Chicago office. I clicked. There it was, a photo of me and Clara, my best friend Liam's wife, on a hotel balcony. The city lights a constellation of our betrayal. The sender was anonymous, but the intent was clear: total annihilation. My phone vibrated violently against the glass desk. Liam, then my wife, then my managing partner. They all knew. 5 years of carefully constructed lies, of stolen moments and whispered promises, detonated in a single, catastrophic email. My life wasn't just collapsing, it was being publicly demolished, brick by humiliating brick, and I knew exactly who lit the fuse. My gaze lifted, cutting through the chaos to the floor beyond my glass office, and I saw him. Marcus Vance, the junior partner I'd pulled from obscurity, the kid I'd mentored for a decade. He was the viper I'd warmed by my own fire. He stood talking to another analyst, a picture of calm concern, but his eyes found mine across the open-plan battlefield. For a fraction of a second, the mask slipped. It wasn't pity I saw. It was the cold, calculating satisfaction of a checkmate. He gave a subtle, almost imperceptible nod, a king acknowledging a fallen rival. This wasn't just about the affair. It was a corporate assassination. The anonymous sender, the surgical strike on my reputation. It was his playbook. I had personally taught him how to dismantle a target, piece by piece, exploiting a single weakness to bring the entire structure down. He just chose me as his first solo project. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. 3 words: checkmate, old friend. The war had just been declared. And Marcus had forgotten the first rule I ever taught him: never leave your enemy alive. The words on the screen blurred. My office, the frantic calls, the horrified faces outside my glass walls. It all dissolved into an echo. My mind didn't retreat to the affair, not at first. It went back 10 years, to a crowded recruitment event at the University of Chicago. There he was, Marcus Vance. Not the polished shark in the Brioni suit I saw today, but a hungry kid in a rented blazer 2 sizes too big. He was sharp, relentless, and had a fire in his eyes I recognized because it used to burn in my own. Everyone else saw a rough-around-the-edges analyst. I saw a weapon, so I hired him. I forged him. I gave him the keys to a world he'd only dreamed of. Dinners at my club, weekends at my lake house. He became a fixture, a younger brother. He was supposed to be my legacy. He was there when Liam, my best friend since we were roommates at Northwestern, would come over for whiskey and cigars. Liam, the man whose wedding I'd been best man at. The man whose son called me Uncle Caleb. Marcus would sit quietly in my leather armchair, a ghost in the room, absorbing everything. He saw the easy camaraderie, the decades of shared history. He listened as I complained about my own sterile marriage, the quiet pact of respectful distance my wife and I had mistaken for a life together. He learned all my secrets before I even knew they were weapons. And he was there, at those same dinners, when I'd catch Clara's eye across the table, Liam's wife. She had a sadness that mirrored my own, a loneliness that felt like an echo of the silence in my own home. Our affair didn't start with a bang. It began in the spaces between words. A shared glance during one of Liam's oblivious monologues. A hand lingering a second too long when passing a wine glass. We were 2 people drowning in plain sight, and we grabbed onto each other as a life raft. It was a desperate, selfish, and intoxicating mistake. For 5 years it was our secret island. The fatal error was mine. I was the one who brought the serpent into our Eden. I'd have Marcus over for Sunday brunch with Liam and Clara. I'd talk strategy with him late at night, fueled by scotch, explaining how to find a target's single point of failure. Find the one secret they'll do anything to protect, Marcus, I'd once told him, my voice slurring with arrogance. That's their center of gravity. Kick it out, and their whole world collapses. He'd just nod, his eyes gleaming with a student's focus. He wasn't my student. He was a cartographer, meticulously mapping my ruin. He saw the fault line running directly through my life, connecting my best friend, my lover, and my career. And he just waited for the perfect moment to trigger the quake. The fog of shock began to recede, replaced by the ice-cold clarity of a strategist under fire. My mind, trained to dissect complex deals and hostile takeovers, turned its full focus inward, replaying the last 10 years with Marcus as if it were market data. I wasn't just betrayed, I was deconstructed, and the architect had left his blueprints all over the crime scene. The photo, Miami. 6 months ago. A frantic secret getaway with Clara. It was the one time we'd been reckless. The one time we'd left our carefully constructed Chicago bubble. How? My brain raced, sifting through details until it snagged on a memory. Marcus, leaning against my desk a week before the trip. "Heard you're looking for a quick break," he'd said, all casual helpfulness. "My concierge guy can get you into the setai, total privacy. Just a favor, Caleb." He hadn't just known, he'd booked the stage for my execution. He'd probably paid the photographer himself. The timing of the email wasn't random either. It was surgical. Tomorrow morning, I was scheduled to present the final terms of the Langston acquisition to the board. It was my 5-year masterpiece, a billion-dollar deal that would have been the capstone of my career at Apex. With this email, the deal wasn't just in jeopardy, I was. My reputation was radioactive. No board would trust the judgment of a man whose personal life had just imploded so spectacularly. Marcus wasn't just taking my life, he was stealing my legacy. He learned my playbook too well. A simple character assassination was crude. No, Marcus would have executed a multi-pronged attack. He wouldn't just expose the affair, he'd poison the well. My mind raced to my computer files. The Langston deal models. The proprietary algorithms I'd developed. Had he backdoored my system? Planted a logic bomb in the financials? Made it look like I was cooking the books to cover some personal debt? The affair wasn't the weapon. It was the deafening distraction while he dismantled my entire professional life. He wouldn't just get me fired. He'd make it look like I was a fraud all along. The intercom on my desk phone buzzed. A harsh, invasive sound. My assistant's voice, strained and thin. "Caleb, Daniel wants to see you, in his office, now." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. As I moved toward the door, my phone lit up with an email notification. It was from Daniel, our managing partner, sent 30 seconds ago. The subject line was Langston Acquisition. My blood ran cold. I opened it. The body of the message was a single, devastating sentence. Effective immediately, Marcus Vance will be taking lead on the Langston presentation. We'll discuss your future with the firm in the morning. It was done. The coup was complete. He hadn't just exposed me, he'd replaced me before my body was even cold. I looked across the floor. Marcus was already walking toward Daniel's office, briefcase in hand, not even bothering to look my way. He didn't have to. He'd already won. But as I watched him go, a cold, dark fire started burning in my gut. He thought the game was over. He thought checkmate meant the end. He had forgotten the real final lesson I'd taught him, the one whispered over a third scotch late one night. When you've taken everything from a man, you've also taken away everything he has left to lose. And a man with nothing to lose is the most dangerous animal on the planet. I smoothed my tie. I straightened my suit jacket. Then, I walked. Each step was deliberate, measured. The open-plan office, usually a symphony of ringing phones and rapid-fire keyboards, had fallen into a cathedral-like hush. Every head turned. I could feel their eyes on me. A mix of pity, disgust, and morbid curiosity. They were vultures circling a fresh kill. Let them look. Their judgment was irrelevant noise. The man they thought they knew, Caleb Thorne, Apex partner, was already dead. The thing walking toward Daniel's office was something else entirely, something colder and much, much emptier. Daniel didn't look up when I entered. He was staring out his window at the Chicago skyline, a titan in his glass tower. Close the door, Caleb. His voice was devoid of emotion. It was the same tone he used when discussing a failed asset or a market downturn. I was no longer a person, I was a liability to be managed. The board is compromised, he said, finally turning. His eyes were like polished stones. The Langston deal requires absolute confidence. Your situation has created a catastrophic perception issue. He gestured vaguely at the chair opposite his desk, but didn't invite me to sit. Marcus has the files. He'll see it through. I didn't flinch. I didn't plead. I didn't offer a single excuse. I just nodded, a slight, almost imperceptible dip of my head. A clean cut. It's the right move for the firm. My calm acceptance seemed to unnerve him more than any outburst would have. He expected a fight, a desperate plea for the career I'd spent 2 decades building. He wasn't prepared for this cold, hollow agreement. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. We'll work out a generous severance package, he said, regaining his footing. Discreetly, for your years of service. Thank you, Daniel, I said. My voice was level, a monotone. I only ask for 1 hour, to collect my personal effects and wipe my personal data from the system. He hesitated for a second, then nodded. Fine. Security will escort you out at 4 p.m. sharp. I turned and left without another word. Walking back through the gauntlet of stairs, I saw Marcus. He was standing by my old office, my nameplate already gone from the door. He was holding my Langston file, a king surveying his newly conquered territory. Our eyes met. He was expecting to see a broken man. Instead, he saw a ghost. The smug satisfaction in his expression faltered, replaced by a sliver of uncertainty. It was exactly what I wanted him to feel. I sat at my desk, ignoring the frantic texts still lighting up my phone. I didn't open family photos or sentimental emails. I opened a secure, encrypted messaging app buried deep in my system, one I'd set up years ago for a particularly hostile acquisition. My fingers moved swiftly across the keyboard. My message was to a name Marcus would never know, a specialist in a field far dirtier than finance. The message was 5 words: Magnus, activating the contingency. The command was sent, a digital signal rocketing from the 42nd floor into the ether to a man who existed only as a ghost in encrypted networks. Magnus, my insurance policy. A relic from a past life, when I did dirtier work than private equity. A life where betrayal wasn't met with a severance package, but with silent, irreversible consequences. On my screen, I initiated the standard corporate data wipe protocol. The progress bar began its slow crawl, a visual anesthetic for the IT department. To any observer, I was a defeated man erasing the digital footprints of his disgrace. They couldn't see the ghost program running beneath it, a sliver of code I'd embedded in the firm's mainframe years ago. It wasn't deleting, it was copying. Every file, every email, every sensitive scrap of data I'd ever had access to was flowing through a hardened tunnel to a server in a country that didn't officially exist on most maps. My fingers moved with mechanical calm. I deleted the email chains with Clara, the calendar invites for lunches that were never just lunch, the hotel confirmations. It was a performance, and I gave them the show they expected. The broken man, scrubbing the evidence of his weakness. Each keystroke was a metronome, counting down the seconds of my old life. A shadow fell across my desk. Marcus. He stood there, holding my Langston file, the corner of the leather portfolio digging into his hip. He'd put on one of my favorite ties. The audacity was breathtaking. Caleb, he said, his voice a carefully rehearsed symphony of regret. I just want you to know, this wasn't personal. I stopped typing but didn't look up. Everything is personal, Marcus. That's lesson number 1. You seem to have forgotten it. I just did what you taught me, he pressed, a note of defensiveness creeping in. I saw a vulnerability, and I leveraged it for a strategic advantage. It's the Apex way. My mistake, I said, finally lifting my eyes to meet his. The fire was gone from my gaze, replaced by an Arctic calm. I taught you how to be a shark. I forgot to teach you there's always a bigger one in the water." I gave him a hollow smile. "Congratulations on the win." My capitulation seemed to embolden him. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The Langston deal. I'm presenting to the board in the morning. For a smooth transition, I was hoping you could point me to any last-minute sensitivities." The bait. He couldn't resist. He needed my expertise to seal his victory. He needed the final key from the man he'd just executed. My smile widened, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Of course," I said, my voice turning conspiratorial. "For the good of the firm," I leaned forward, gesturing him closer. "It's all in the files, but the real play isn't in the main acquisition. It's their Luxembourg subsidiary, Ethelred Holdings." His eyes lit up with predatory focus. "The due diligence barely scratches the surface," I continued, feeding him the poison line by beautiful line. "Ethelred holds a portfolio of unregistered fintech patents. They're the real jewel, worth billions once they're brought onto the books. The current valuation is a smokescreen. Focus your presentation there. Tell the board you uncovered a hidden asset that doubles the value of the deal. They'll think you're a god." He practically vibrated with ambition. He saw his path to a full partnership, to my seat at the table, paved with gold. He saw his name in the Wall Street Journal. He didn't see the jaws of the trap closing around him. "Caleb, I don't know what to say, thank you." "Don't mention it," I said, turning back to my screen. "We're colleagues, after all." He walked away, practically floating. The fool. Ethelred Holdings was indeed a smokescreen, but not for a treasure. It was a lead-lined casket. I had created it myself 2 years ago, a phantom subsidiary buried deep within the Langston corporate structure during a consulting phase. It was my Judas Cradle, a contingency designed for a world where loyalty was a currency traded for the next best offer. On the surface, Ethelred was clean, but buried beneath layers of cryptographic and legal firewalls was its true purpose. It was a sinkhole for toxic assets, a repository for liabilities so radioactive they would make our compliance department burst into flames. More than that, its ownership was structured through a daisy chain of shell corporations that led directly to 3 entities on the Treasury Department's sanctions list. The due diligence reports Marcus was holding had been meticulously falsified by me, using a system access level no one else in the firm even knew existed. The moment Apex acquired Langston, the legal firewall would vaporize. Ethelred's toxicity wouldn't just infect the deal, it would infect the entire firm. The acquisition would trigger an automatic federal investigation. The fines would be catastrophic, stock would plummet. But the real beauty of the trap was its precision. The man who championed the deal, the man who told the board to double down on the hidden asset in Luxembourg, would be the epicenter of the blast. Marcus wouldn't just be fired. He'd be facing criminal charges. He would be the patsy, the architect of his own spectacular demise. My phone buzzed. A single encrypted message. "Cradle armed, awaiting command." I typed my reply. "Wait for the signature, then burn it all down." The data wipe progress bar hit 100%. The ghost program vanished. I stood up. The security guard, a burly man named Frank, who had shared a nod with me every morning for a decade, looked uncomfortable. "Time to go, Mr. Thorne." I looked around the office that had been my entire world, the leather chair, the skyline view, the photos of a family that now felt like strangers. I touched nothing. I took nothing. A man starting a war travels light. I walked past Marcus, who was already at my desk, my Langston file open, his lips moving as he rehearsed his presentation. He was staring at the name Ethelred Holdings, his eyes gleaming with the fatal light of greed. He didn't look up as I passed. I didn't exist to him anymore. That was fine. Because in a few days, after the ink was dry and the champagne corks had popped, it would be Marcus Vance who ceased to exist. And I would be the ghost who pulled the trigger. The revolving doors of the Apex Tower spit me out onto the concrete canyon of Wacker Drive. The life I'd known for 2 decades was behind that polished glass, and for the first time, I was on the outside looking in. I didn't look back. I hailed the first cab I saw, The name of a discreet hotel on the tip of my tongue, a place of sterile anonymity where ghosts could work unseen. The room was a minimalist cube of gray and white, high above the city. It was perfect. I took off my tie, the silk noose of my former life, and dropped it in the wastebasket. My personal phone, which I'd ignored all day, buzzed incessantly on the nightstand. My wife. Liam. My wife again. I finally answered her call. Her voice was a torrent of tearful accusations and questions. I listened without interruption, a statue absorbing a storm. When she finally paused for breath, my reply was 2 words. It's over. I didn't specify what. The marriage, the affair, my career, my life as she knew it, all of it. I hung up before she could respond and blocked her number. Then Liam's. Then my parents. I was excising my past, like a surgeon removing a tumor. There was no room for sentiment in what came next. My burner phone, the one linked to Magnus, lit up. It was a secure link. I clicked. My laptop screen filled with a live video feed. The Apex boardroom. The image was crystal clear, the audio crisp. Magnus was a true artist. I saw them all. Daniel, the other partners, their faces a mixture of greed and relief. And at the head of the mahogany table, in my chair, stood Marcus Vance. He was radiant, glowing with stolen glory. And so while the initial valuation of the Langston portfolio is strong, Marcus said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey, my deeper analysis uncovered a truly transformative asset. I leaned closer to the screen. Here it comes. A Luxembourg subsidiary, Aethelred Holdings, he announced, a magician revealing his trick. He paused for dramatic effect, just as I'd taught him. On paper, it's a minor entity. In reality, it holds a portfolio of unregistered fintech patents. It's a hidden treasure chest. Once integrated, it doesn't just add value to this deal, it doubles it. The partners murmured, their eyes gleaming. Daniel leaned forward, a shark smelling blood in the water. You've vetted this, Marcus. Thoroughly? Absolutely, Marcus lied, his smile unwavering. The due diligence is flawless. This isn't just an acquisition anymore, it's the future of Apex. He was magnificent. He was a perfect, beautiful fool, reciting the eulogy for his own career. As he walked them through the falsified projections, my burner phone vibrated again. A text from a number I still knew by heart. Clara. He knows everything, Caleb. Liam. He's going to destroy me. Please, what do I do? I stared at the words, the last echo of the life I had torched. 5 years of shared secrets and stolen moments reduced to a desperate plea. For a flicker of a second, I felt the phantom limb of an old emotion, pity, maybe even guilt. Then I remembered the photo, the public demolition, the cold satisfaction in Marcus's eyes. He hadn't just targeted me, he had used her and Liam as ammunition. My jaw tightened. I deleted her message without a reply. There were no life rafts left. Not for her, not for me. Everyone drowns in a war. On the screen, the partners were nodding. Daniel stood up, extending a hand to Marcus. Congratulations, son. You've done the firm a great service. Let's sign. Quote. The camera zoomed in as pens moved across paper. The deal was done. Marcus's victory was absolute. He had my deal, my office, my future. He beamed, accepting the handshakes and backpats, a king crowned on a throne of lies. My fingers moved to my own keyboard. I opened the encrypted channel to Magnus. My message was a single word, signature. The reply was instantaneous, acknowledged, burning it down. In the hotel room, I watched Marcus lift a glass of champagne. He looked directly into the hidden camera as if sensing my gaze. He raised his glass in a silent, arrogant toast to the man he thought he'd buried. At that exact moment, his phone, sitting on the boardroom table, buzzed with an incoming email. Then another. Then a flurry. The other partners' phones began to chirp in a rising chorus. Marcus's triumphant smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion. He picked up his phone. I watched his face drain of all color, the blood leaving it so fast he looked like a corpse. His hand trembled, and the champagne flute slipped from his fingers, shattering on the polished mahogany. The celebration was over. The justice had just begun. Magnus didn't just light a fuse, he detonated a daisy chain of digital warheads. The first email, sent to every partner and the head of compliance, was from a secure, untraceable server. Subject: Urgent Compliance Alert, Langston Acquisition. It contained a single, damning PDF, the Aethelred Holdings files. Not the fake ones I'd given Marcus, but the real ones. The ones detailing the toxic debt, the shell corporations, and the explicit links to sanctioned Russian oligarchs. Attached was a copy of the deal's final signature page, with Marcus's name highlighted in yellow, right next to a log, showing his digital access to the falsified reports he'd used. He wasn't just implicated, he was framed as the sole architect of a federal crime. Simultaneously, a second, more explosive package landed in the inboxes of the Wall Street Journal and the SEC. The leak was public. Apex Strategic Partners wasn't just having a bad day, its name was now synonymous with criminal negligence. The firm was compromised. On my screen, chaos erupted. Daniel, his face purple with rage, shoved his phone in Marcus's face. "What is this? What the hell is Aethelred?" Marcus was hyperventilating, his eyes darting around the room, looking for an escape that didn't exist. I don't know. Caleb, he told me." "Caleb is gone!" Daniel roared, his voice shaking the hidden microphone. "You brought this to the board! You sold this! Your name is on the signature!" The other partners were scrambling, barking orders into their phones, trying to kill the deal, to stop the bleeding, but it was too late. The poison was already in the system. The stock ticker I had open in another window began to twitch, then dive, a red waterfall of ruin. Amid the pandemonium, Marcus's head snapped up. His eyes, wide with terror and dawning comprehension, stared directly into the camera lens. He knew I was watching. The smug victor was gone, replaced by a terrified boy trapped in the wreckage of his own ambition. He saw the ghost. I didn't smile. This wasn't about joy. It was about balance, a transaction. He had taken my life, so I had taken his future. He had used my secrets against me, so I had armed him with a secret that would be his undoing. I closed the laptop, cutting the feed. I didn't need to see the rest. The final lesson was complete. Checkmate isn't the end of the game, it's just the beginning of the other player's turn. And my turn was never about winning. It was about burning the board. Let's be honest. Which betrayal cuts deeper and is more unforgivable, the one from your partner or the one from your best friend?